Hi model builders, welcome to my review of Revell's 1966 Ford Mustang Shelby GT350H. Now this kit, I'm not sure how old this thing is when they first introduced this. One thing I do want to mention is that this kit is the same body between the Shelby kit and also I believe the standard Mustang Fastback kit. And the reason I say that is the first thing you notice when you start working on the body of this thing is that down in this area, which I've removed, it'll say Mustang 2+2, which is the emblems that would be on the standard Mustang Fastback of the period. It also comes with the in the kit the louvers for a non-Shelby car and a couple other things that lead me to believe that this is the same kit, just this one has parts in it to make the Shelby. So a little bit about the way I built this kit and the way I build models. I used to build things mostly factory stock, was very firm on doing factory paint colors and all that kind of things. And I quit model building probably 15, 20 years ago and just got back into it. In fact, this car is my first model kit since returning to it. And this go around and decided I'm just going to build cars the way I would like them if they were in my driveway. So I didn't really want a black Shelby. And in scouring the internet for some detail photos of a GT350, I came across a car that was painted a maroon or a dark red and with the gold stripes. And I thought, wow, that looks pretty good. So that's what I decided to do. That's why this car is painted the way it is. So it's not striving for accuracy as far as being a Shelby. It's just striving to be accurate as far as a 66 Mustang would have been. So it's kind of a Shelby-ized Mustang. Now, that said, I don't super detail my car kits. I don't do engine wiring. I do everything pretty much with my paintbrush and detail them out that way. As I said, this was my return to model building. It's not perfect. I wish the paint was a little bit better. And then we'll also talk about the decals. But overall, when it comes out of the box and you start looking at things, this is a pretty nice kit. The body is really nicely done. Not a whole lot of flash on it. Most of the parts were pretty clean. And I was pretty pleased with it overall. The chrome was nice. There was a lot of detail to this. A lot of it was just very well done. My only criticism probably on doing the body part was that the fender emblems for, let's say, 289 up here are very faintly molded in. Very difficult to paint those. So we'll go into a little bit more of the details now with the interior and so on. So I'll draw this thing in here a little bit for you. I don't know how good our lighting's going to be, but we'll try to get you a shot of the interior there. It comes with the Shelby version wood rim steering wheel. It's got the floor shift for the 4-speed, bucket seats. The dash detail, I'm afraid that my phone camera is not going to really get this for you, but the dashboard detail is really pretty good. The steering wheel, you can pick that detail out pretty nicely with just paint. The seats are reasonably accurate. It does have a back seat as well, which is multiple pieces. It took me a little bit to figure out exactly how those went together because the instruction sheet wasn't quite clear, but we figured it out. The door trim panels in this kit are molded into the interior tub, but the front seats are separate, as is the dashboard, the shifter, and the steering wheel and column. I was pretty pleased with the interior. Unfortunately, it's black here, so you really aren't going to be able to see the detail, but I thought it looked really good. I was quite happy with it. We're going to go to the underhood now. And this has some sort of hinges that hold it on, which is kind of nice. I actually kind of like that. One of my gripes with a lot of these kits, but I know it's done for the juvenile crowd, is there's a lot of chrome that comes on these things. Some of the stuff that was chrome that shouldn't be was the alternator, the valve covers. The Shelby valve covers should be in aluminum, not a chrome. And one or two other pieces that I can't remember exactly what all I ended up painting. But that as I painted, The Monte Carlo bar that goes across the front of the engine on the fender wells, that comes chrome. That should not be. It's just kind of aggravating to have to strip chrome off or paint over chrome. Kind of drives me nuts. Engine detail's reasonably good. Can't complain. The Shelby valve covers are pretty nice. You can paint those and then just pick the chrome or the machine top surfaces and the letters off. Distributor doesn't look bad. It does come with a separate master cylinder, which was nice. I've not really seen that very much. That wasn't molded on. It comes with the battery, which I kind of think was, I'm not sure if that was a separate piece or not. I can't remember now. The washer bottle or bag is also separate. And there are decals for both the washer bag and the battery top, which is kind of cool. Nice detail decals for that. So under hood, it makes a pretty nice piece. Radiator supports molded with the horns in it. There is an upper radiator hose. Mine does not have it. I could not get my upper radiator hose to fit properly. It was too short. And so it would be just hanging there in midair on one end or the other. So I elected to leave it out, at least for the time being, until I come up with a solution. That doesn't bother me that much, but I think ultimately I'll probably try to put it in. It has separate turn signals for the front valance, which is really nice. Separate reverse lamps for the rear valance. Shelby fuel filler cap is a separate piece, as are the taillights. One note on the exterior, the quarter windows are absolute bastards to put in. And then you're supposed to paint the trim around the edges, which is very difficult to do, as there isn't much of any kind of raised detail there to be able to accomplish that. Did not have a good time with those quarter windows. I wound up using a product to glue those in that I got from my model railroad days, which is micro crystal clear. This is a great product to use to put in glass or the headlights if you don't want any glue residue to show when you're done, because it dries clear. And that was very helpful in installing those little bugger quarter windows. Absolutely hated those things. See, I need to do a little touch up here in this vent window. How'd that escape my otherwise stellar notice? All right, so we'll flip this on its side and you can have a look at the underside. So the chassis detail is okay. I'd say it's maybe average. The exhaust system is a separate piece. The rear axle and leaf springs are cast as one with the drive shaft. The gas tank is integral to the floor pan. The front suspension and steering is all one unit. Tie rod ends, control arms, all that's molded together. But the detail is actually pretty good. One gripe I did have with it, the Shelby oil pan is molded in such a way that it's open on the top. Once it's in the car, you can't really see it, but I still wasn't real wild about it. And it's also chromed along with the oil pan, which I did not care for. The rear shocks are separate, I believe, yes. And a note on the front suspension, they came with separate shocks and coil springs. The coil springs and shocks are molded together, but I, for the life of me, could not get them to fit. I think they were too short and they would keep falling out. Not sure why that was. I ultimately end up leaving them out, and when the car's together, you can't tell. So, no harm, no foul. I do notice that there are two holes here in the chassis floor pan. I have no idea what they're for. But there they are. And the headers line up reasonably well. This is always a gripe of mine, that these things don't always line up very good, and in this case they're marginal. They work, but not great. As you can tell, I just paint everything on my floor pans like a semi-flat black. I'm not into the fading paint along the rockers or anything like that. I know a lot of guys do that. I admire that level of detail, but it's not for me. Stock tires and wheels. I tried to put a wider tire on with like a torque thrust wheel. That's what I really wanted to have on this car. But the ones I had were too wide. They wouldn't fit. I couldn't put the body down on the chassis when I did that. These, I guess they're like Magnum 500s. They're okay. The detail's reasonable. Pick out the centers with black and they look okay. But as you'll note, I don't know if you can really see it here, the front wheels and tires, trying to get these things to stay straight when you glue them on and they dry is really difficult. Now I support the car and kind of let things dry, but I still got a bad case of negative camber in this front wheel for some reason. And the ride height in the back just doesn't seem quite right to me. It looks a little high. So a more fastidious builder is going to want to do something with that probably. Now, the final note on this kit, which I'm overall very happy with, and it fit together really well, is the decals. And you're going to hear about these from other people that have built this kit. So you get these gold stripes, which are fine for black cars and this red car. But the hood decal with the scoop is molded in is made into one piece as a decal. And it is absolutely a nightmare to get around that scoop. My suggestion, if you're building this kit yourself, is to try to cut that scoop portion out and deal with that separately. Yes, you're going to have a seam that you're going to have to hide, but then you're going to avoid getting all these wrinkles in here. Now let me tell you something about that. I am not inexperienced at doing decals. In fact, it used to be one of my better skills. This thing was an absolute nightmare for a guy who even knows how to do decals. I used Solvaset. I used all kinds of things. I screwed around with these things for forever trying to get them right. And unfortunately, that's as good as I could get them. I'm not happy with it, but it's the best I could do. And if a guy like me is having trouble with them, you can imagine if you're not very experienced, you're not going to have a good time either. The balance of them weren't bad. The roof stripes, the trunk stripes, they all went on pretty nicely. But that hood, absolute disaster. Am I happy with it? No, not at all. How do I fix it? I have no idea other than getting another set of decals and trying it again. And you'll notice I also didn't put them on the vents on the hood, as by the time I got to that point I was so frustrated with putting stripes in this car, I just quit. I may add them someday. I still have them. Aside from that, if you don't have to put the stripes on, you can make yourself a real nice kit. I think the finished product looks really good. If you could change the ride height a little bit, it would be a fairly good looking car. So I like to give these things a rating of 1 out of 5 stars. This one gives a solid 4 for me. I think the overall finished product is really good. A couple of niggling things I don't like, as I noted, was the ride height, some of the chrome stuff being a little ridiculous, and these quarter vent windows. Just, ugh. They were tough. They're just barely held in there. But if you can deal with a couple of little things like that, it winds up being a pretty nice car. So this one I would definitely recommend. It's not a bad kit at all. As I said, I believe it's the same as the regular fastback kit, just with some different pieces in it. You do wind up with a couple of extra spare parts that you can maybe use. Oh yes, you also notice I didn't put the side scoops on back in the quarters, as I just don't care for them for myself. As I said, I made this car to be what I wanted it to be, not what the instruction sheet said it should be. But yeah, overall a good kit, 4 out of 5 stars. Wouldn't mind recommending it to anybody. I hope that was helpful. Please enjoy my other videos on model cars and real cars. I hope to see you soon.